So sings my soul. Praise my God of love and life. So sings my soul. The joy.
It's a climb. You know, my word is process. And the idea is the climb that you're making is the joy of your living. It's the involvement. It's the grit. It's the strength you bring forth from yourself. This morning I want to share with you some thoughts on freedom and your creative options to be better. And this month my theme is a quote from Rumi, which is, live as if everything is rigged in your favor. Live as if everything is rigged in your favor. I am one of these people who is thrilled by spring. Spring for me is that seed of freedom that God expresses to us on the outer, so that it might resonate somewhere within us on the inner. And when it does, it puts you in a place of life-transforming grace. It changes everything. Because when you're absorbed in the beauty of life, it washes away. All the rough places become smooth. And the climb becomes more like a flight than a glide. And it's not that you are ever not going to be in the rough and tough of life still, but there is something in you that lifts you up beyond and above the issues of your health, the issues of your failing relationships when that comes about, the issue of jobs and income. And we are seeing the issues of the world with war, Ukraine, people being displaced, bombs dropping on civilians. And we are thinking way away from all that goings on, that, okay, we're safe, but we all have a price to pay because it's one world. And so we're going to pay more in gas prices and various things because that's how the world is. It's a relational world. Everything is connected to everything else. And so when we come to church to find that place that can give us that sense of grace, that sense of optimism, that sense of hope. Not hope in that kind of wishy-washy, well, I'm hoping this will happen. Hope is much stronger than that. When St. Paul talks about faith, hope, and love, but love is the greatest, in some ways, there are really no greatest there. That's his opinion, and it's a good opinion, but hope is just as strong. Because hope is that call of that inner light to you to let you know that wherever you are right now, no matter how bad it seems, that there is something that is ready, willing, and able to take you to what the ancient Hebrews would call the promised land. And theirs wasn't necessarily a climb, there was a journey. There was a journey from where they are to that promise of where milk and honey would flow. And milk and honey, all these are poetic statements. There's no real world with milk and honey flowing. It's the poetry that transcends the prose of everyday pain and living to give you an inspiration that will bring you out from the places that are rough, that are challenging, that are depressing. And so when we see the example of what the ego can do, because he's in the dread of winter in his own consciousness, to be destroying the places of peace and prosperity in Ukraine, you know that that is not who we are. That is not what our God image reflects or should reflect. And so we come back to the idea of spring and hope of possibilities, of optimism, and recognize that life is such an inspirational thing that you can make a difference even though you may not be over there with guns firing at people that are doing bad things. You're here holding the hope and the dream and the vision of a possibility of a world that is peaceful, that is harmonious, that can cooperate, that do not see others as people for you to simply wipe out. We have seen this movie in the world many, many times, and it doesn't work for anyone. And so when I look in my front yard, and I remember that during the period of winter, we pruned the roses. And they looked really bad at that time. But I could see and feel the hope. And the hope wasn't something that was never going to happen. The hope was looking ahead into a future that was better for the rose bushes than they were right now. And now all the buds are out. We were hoping that they wouldn't bloom until winter. But some of them said, not winter, I'm sorry, Easter. But some of them say, we're here, and they're blooming and they're lovely. And it's spring, and it's hope. And it is the human power to connect with God. Because God is doing on the outer what you can do on the inner. God is showing you what hope looks like. God is showing you that this world doesn't have to be in the dread of winter feeling where it is dark and dank and cold, like the heart of that leader who is doing this terrible thing. So whether we are talking about Ukraine or we are talking about America with all our problems and our issues, you must realize, as Moses realized, talking to the Israelite, that I put before you this day, I call on heaven and earth to witness that I'm doing this. Good and bad, life and death. But you must choose life, choose the good, that you and your descendants may live. That's hope. That's hope. And that hope is just as concrete and powerful as love. And so, even with St. Paul saying love is the greatest depending on which one you're talking about. They're all the greatest. They're all three of them. Faith, hope, and love. They're all the greatest. There are times when we must understand there's no comparison. That three great things are just three great things. And hope is the one I want to talk about today, because I want you to know that wherever your life is, you can choose for it to be better. Why? Because God is forever putting the options before you, just as Moses says. The options are before you, and we have freedom. The freedom is for us to make the choice. And that's why Holmes is saying that thoughts are things, not because thoughts are literally things, but that's the poetry of it. That's the poetry of it. To let you know that once you begin to feel something within your heart, that it develops into a light of hope, not different from springtime. And there will come a time in a not too distant future when there will be a transformation. And spring is to hope as optimism is to your dream. It is the springtime of your imagining. It is the springtime of your reimagining, I should say. So what have you imagined as your life? And as you go along, that particular imagination will change, will morph into something bigger and better, and something that can be more transformational, and something that can be more relevant to your time and place. This is our time and place. In some ways, there is no Ukraine over there. There's no Russia over there. It's all happening within us. And so, when Dr. Holmes says that we should learn to control our thought processes and bring them into line with reality, he's not saying that what you experience here is not a reality, but he's saying to bring them into the unchangeable aspect of spirit, where there is peace and love and harmony. And this is really where the transformation takes place. It doesn't take place out there before it takes place within you. Within you. And so what do you see as possibilities? Yes, we see the ugliness of life. Just as I saw the ugliness of the rose bush when I pruned them, there was nothing but stalks with thorns sticking up in the air as if in protest. Why are you doing this to me? But now look at them, because what we were doing is pruning that which does not work. As you and I need to prune what doesn't work to bring about this harmony and peace and the springtime and the hope of what life is. This is really where we are. And whatever you're going through, and it can be something physical, medical, it can be an illness, it can be a challenge, it can be a relationship that has fallen apart, it can be finances. All these things are the little wars that are going on in consciousness. And the one who has the power to change it all, you will see when you look into the mirror. It's you. It's you. It's where we begin to reflect on what it means to be in the image and likeness of God. It is the creativity that comes forth. But you have to understand that you need to have a hope, a vision, a light, an inspiration that is calling you forward. As Jennifer sang, it's the climb, it's the journey. And we are all capable of doing this. So you have this freedom. And the question is, how are you going to exercise it? How are you going to exercise this hope? It was Isaiah again who wrote, "Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength." Sometimes they say those who wait. But there's a translation that I like that says, "Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint." We're not living in a world where nothing is happening. We're not living in a world where something bad isn't happening here and there. We're not sticking our heads in the ground and saying, no, it doesn't exist. But there comes a time when we must come into the holy place where there is no such challenge, because we are reflecting upon the one life, the life of God, and the perfection of God. And so we let the world of things and events fall away, as we do here when we come on Sunday. We don't just come here because God will be angry with us because we didn't show up in church. What we will feel is the anger that grows in us because we never take the time to reflect on a relationship, not only with each other, but with God. And this is a relational world, and we need to do this. If we do this, then we will find that there is such a thing as happiness and meaning and creativity in our lives. When William James talks about the fact that one of the great discoveries of his generation was that a human being can change his thinking and change his life, change his attitude and change his life. He's saying that consciousness is what will do it for us. And the consciousness is not out there somewhere. The consciousness is in this awesome place that Jesus called the kingdom of God. The center of all creative potentialities is within you. The goodness that you want to see out there begins in here. within you. And that's where it starts. And that's the only place that can be transformational. Not only for you, but if you can't transform yourself, how are you going to transform the world? And that's why Jesus said, don't worry about the speck in your brother's eye. Take the beam out of your eye first. Look at yourself and reflect. And that's what we do when we come here. We reflect not so much on our faults, but we reflect on our strength. We take the beam out so we can reflect on our strength. And what is the strength? Well, as Isaiah said, those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like an eagle. Instead of struggling and feeling the struggle, yes, life sometimes is hard. But if you focus on the struggle, instead of what lifts you up, what inspires you, what you're learning from even a difficult experience, then you'll never get to the point where spirituality becomes transformational for you. You will only come to the point where you can notice and point fingers and criticize and say, oh, poor me. Yes, you can talk about what you're going through, describing it, but don't affirm it. There's a difference between saying, this doesn't feel right within me. You don't go to your doctor and when the doctor says, how are you? You said, I'm perfect, whole, and complete. Then why are you there? You go there and say, I'm feeling pain here, and my digestive system isn't working. Yes, but that's not an affirmation. That's a description. That's a communication, and people sometimes confuse the two things. But if you go around just always talking about your illness, then it might be that you're affirming it. And what you affirm tends to become the reality of your life. So in spring, I don't think about the time when the rose bush looked bare, there were no leaves, just stems of thorns. I am looking at them now and I am seeing the buds of possibilities. The buds that are now opening into full bloom with colors and shapes and scents. And it's like heaven has transformed the earth. And I'm enjoying this. And so it is that happiness is something that you commit to. Commit to your happiness. Yes, there are sad things happening around, which doesn't mean you go around and laugh at them. You must feel and see what you can do and do your part. But in the meantime, if you get yourself down before you know it, you'll have all kinds of illness. Because your body will begin to respond as if it is fighting against something. Instead of coming to a place that you come to when you're meditating. When you're meditating, be still and know that I am God. Last Wednesday when we had our Wednesday night service and we did our meditation, we have a time for discussion, and one person made the point that, I never quite understood what it is that I'm looking for with meditation. And that's true for many people. You do that breathing exercise and you focus on your breath in a Zen Buddhist technique of meditation. And so when it can't be done, when you find your mind drifting all over, you said, what's the point of all this? What am I supposed to get? The worst thing to do when you're meditating is to look for something. You're looking for something. The idea is to become single-pointed, where you may focus on one thing until you are looking at nothing. And when you're looking at nothing, there becomes a change in consciousness. But you can't go looking for it. It's the funny thing. If you go search for it, you won't find it. But if you don't search for it, you're not ever going to find it. Figure that one out. The idea is be still and know. Be still and know. The stillness is a different form of knowing than when you're saying, I want this from meditation. It's not like prayer. Prayer, you're specific, I want this. But meditation is not like that. Meditation is preparing that sense of your relational connection with God and with others and with nature and with everything. It's when you begin to feel the web of life, that everything is connected to everything else. The farthest galaxies and your heart are connected to each other. And if one didn't exist, the other may not have existed. At least in our case, if the galaxies didn't exist, we wouldn't exist. There are times, yes, when we will shuffle off. But right now you're here, and you're just as important to God as anything else. One of the things that we need to have at this time, if we're going to have freedom to experience or creative options to be better, is that we must have a passion to create. Your life is not just a thing that is going along. Your life is an organization of your consciousness to bring about beauty and love and success and meaning. And if you have a passion to do those things, if you can feel it, that this is important, not just to me and the people here, it's also important to God. Why? Because God has given you that freedom to be that special person that only you alone can be. And so what you do with this power in dealing with your sickness, in dealing with your relationship, in dealing with your finances, in dealing with how you get along with people of different races, different sex, different sexual persuasions, with the people in Ukraine, with the people in Russia, with the people in China. All these things are connected to spirituality. Religions sometimes tend to wall people out because they are tribal. And we act tribally in our country and elsewhere. But we must understand that growth is getting rid of that. So we recognize the oneness and the harmony and the love with a sense of passion that makes you feel committed to those ideals. And so when we talk about hope, these constitute the great hope of what life can be. And this is just as powerful as love. It's just as powerful as faith, because they all need each other. All three, faith, hope, and love. So let's come to a place where we understand that the passion is important. Jesus said, "Come unto me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." The idea is to come to that place within yourself where we can feel it's important to connect not only with the consciousness of the Christ, but with each other. We have to come to that place of passion within ourselves that means something to all of us. One of the things that we have to do too is to maintain a spiritual practice. So when Ernest Holmes says that we must learn to control our thought processes and bring them into line with reality, this is no different from Jesus saying, "Fear not, little flock, it's your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." What is the kingdom? The potential for good that you have. The potential to create the life you're dreaming of. The potential to hope for something that is uniquely you. And to journey toward it, the climb, as the song says. To journey toward it every day. The problem with us is that we start the journey and then we forget what we're doing because we are confused by or distracted by so many other things. We cannot forget the main thing. That's why the hope does not materialize sometimes, because we have forgotten the main thing, we get distracted. It's easy to be distracted. The world will fill with distractions, but those who turn their eyes to the mountain will renew their strength. That is what the prophet says. The mountain is the peak idea, the hope that you have. And you must find that that idea is driving you all the time. The psychiatrist Carl Meminger says that hope is the indispensable flame of mental health. If you tend to be depressed, but you begin to feel hope, he sees that as the indispensable flame. In other words, God is providing that option for you to change from somebody who's depressed, somebody who's discouraged, somebody who's fatigued. And just like Isaiah saying, you will be like the eagles, flying. And you will run and not faint and not be tired. There's a transformational thing that happens when you're doing what you are supposed to do. And it's not a supposed to do because God has assigned that to you. What God has done is given you the potential for you to make good choices for yourself. It is you who must make the choice. You. And you can make the choice. People say, well, God has a purpose for you. I say God does not, just as Ernest Holmes says, God does not give you a purpose. But God gives you an aim. And the aim is for you to be better than where you are right now. To be good. And so how does that work? If God gave you a purpose, and God has a purpose for everybody, then the world would be pre-planned and nobody would have freedom. No matter what you do, you'd still have to be doing what God has decided. But we know that God didn't decide for that man in Russia to bomb the people in Ukraine. God did not decide that. He decided that. And so we put before you, as Moses says, good and evil, right and wrong, life and death, and we are to choose life that we and our generation may live. It's your choice, this is saying. And so you have that freedom. Freedom comes with responsibility, and responsibility is for you to come into the sacred space frequently, and begin to reflect more deeply on how you can continue to transform that consciousness within you that means everything to how you live in this world and what you can accomplish. English writer Martin F. Tupper says, though the breath of disappointment should chill the sanguine heart, which means the optimistic heart, speedily it glows again, warmed by the embers of hope. So, the winter is gone. That is a seasonal thing. But our seasons within ourselves can happen any day and any time. And so if you are in the winter of despair, step into the spring of hope today and transform your life by thinking good thoughts, by feeling that there is a power within you greater than you are that is willing, able, and ready to transform your life. But you must come to a place of acceptance within yourself. And the acceptance is when you know your hope is real. It's not a wishy-washy kind of thing. It's not a now and then kind of thing. It's a belief, a passionate belief, that the good life is here now within me, and I am living out this sense of goodness because I've freely chosen it to be my life. And when I do, great transformation will take place, not only in your life, but in the world in which we live. God bless you all. And Father, Mother God, how grateful we are that we are here to share this time together, to feel that spirit of love and peace as it moves in and through each one of us in the sacred place of Founders Church. And so we come to this place where we understand the nature of the law of circulation. And so right now we bless the gift and we bless the giver. And we dedicate the gift to the truth that set us free. And so it is. Well, I hope all of you are all right, just as Jennifer sang. And this is the time for us to kind of affirm that all rightness, that goodness. Look at all these beautiful flowers Anne put up here. Yeah, they're all right. No, I'm not going to start singing. I'm looking at my drummer over there, and he thought I was going to sing, but I'm not going to start singing. How are you girls? How are you all doing? Good? Okay, let's turn within. How wonderful it is to feel your presence here. Which is how Spirit individualizes itself as each person. But Spirit also individualizes itself as the earth and all the things that it contains, as the universe and its far-flung distances. And yet, we can feel this vastness within ourselves, not as if we're isolated, but as if we are connected and related to everything and everyone. How wonderful it is that we can speak a word for our country, that we can feel a harmony moving within us and out from us to touch the hearts of those that feel separation, those that feel that there is a battle going on instead of an opportunity to let go and let God. And I can speak the word for Ukraine and for the Russian leadership. To realize that destroying brothers and sisters of humanity and their homes and shelters is not consistent with being good people. I speak the word for peace and for justice for all these people. I speak the word for our leadership in all this. Even as there is restraint, there are needs. Oh, I know that this is a blessed day, because this is a day of springtime, of new hopes and aspirations that are personal and that are universal. And so this day, the earth is a witness that God has laid before us. Good and evil, right and wrong, life and death. And we have made a choice of life, so that there can be an ongoingness, an evolution, and a springtime awakenness to us all that can enfold us in the beauty of colors and fragrances and harmony and love and goodness on the outer and inside our body temples as we experience healing We experience prosperity. We experience kindness. We experience hope. I bless the board, those magnificent individuals who continue to work behind the scenes for the good of our church. And I bless the meeting that we are about to have. And knowing that we are moving now into this state of blessedness forward into the day, I say thank you, Father, Mother God. And together let us all affirm, and so it is. Please stand for the benediction. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace, the peace that passes all understanding, and so it is.